Our story begins with our protagonist, Lee Si-woon, in a state of panic as he stares at his reflection in the mirror. He can't believe what has happened and is bewildered by the fact that he now possesses the face of the fourth young master of the demonic cult from the martial arts novel he had written. As beads of sweat form on his forehead, he questions the absurdity of the situation and wonders why he has become the weakest and most insignificant villain in his own story. The man he has become is Hyuk Ryun Woon, and as he lets out a scream of frustration, he finds himself sitting on a bed with a worried expression on his face. Trying to regain composure, he urges himself to calm down, nervously biting his nail in the process. Reflecting on the situation, Woon reveals that his true identity is Lee Si-woon, a regular 32-year-old man living in South Korea. The very idea of transmigrating into the world of a martial arts novel he authored feels surreal and puzzling. As Woon takes a moment to collect his thoughts, he realizes that there must have been some peculiar circumstances leading up to his transmigration into the novel's universe. In the past, we find Woon busy moving boxes into his new house, relieved that he has finally finished the task. While taking a break, he checks his social media and stumbles upon news about a famous actress being in a coma after an accident, leaving him curious about the details. However, his attention is diverted when some boxes topple over, revealing a laptop. As he picks it up, Woon realizes that the laptop contains a file titled The Way of a Hero, which he refers to as his dark past. Intrigued, he opens the file and discovers that it is the martial arts novel he wrote 10 years ago during his college days. As he delves deeper into the file, Woon notices something strange on the screen. He questions if he was the one who wrote it on the screen. He sees the line, "You have to return to the way of a hero," and that everything is actually but. Before he can comprehend it fully, the laptop unexpectedly transports him inside the very novel he authored. Now inside the novel is Hyuk Ryun Woon. He contemplates whether he should be glad or worried about possessing Hyuk Ryun Woon's memories. Looking at himself in a hand mirror, he sighs, recalling that at this particular moment in the story, Hyuk Ryun Woon had lost consciousness for an entire month after falling off a horse spooked by a bee. As he speaks, Woon is suddenly overcome with a sharp headache, wondering what is happening to him. Then, the memories of Hyuk Ryun Woon's past flood his mind. He witnesses scenes of Hyuk Ryun Woon with multiple women, committing acts of assault against a beggar, and slacking off on his training, even instructing the teacher to bring him alcohol. We find Woon, now inhabiting the body of Hyuk Ryun Woon, consumed by worry as he realizes the kind of life Hyuk Ryun Woon has been leading. The memories of Hyuk Ryun Woon's reckless and impulsive actions rush into Woon's head, causing him immense pain as he clutches his head in agony. He berates Hyuk Ryun Woon, considering him even worse than he had expected. But suddenly, Woon sees a vivid image of Hyuk Ryun Woon being killed, kneeling on the floor in terror. Woon remembers that in the novel, Hyuk Ryun Woon, whose body he now possesses, is fated to die with a single strike by the main character, serving as a stepping stone for the protagonist's journey to become a hero. He realizes that Hyuk Ryun Woon is merely a disposable villain who vanishes quickly. Panicking, Woon is determined to find a way to escape the novel and return to his world before this fate befalls him. He knows he needs a plan to survive. In his desperate state, Woon suddenly grasps a significant detail. He discovers that Hyuk Ryun Woon is the fourth young master of the demonic cult. Despite being an arrogant individual, Hyuk Ryun Woon holds the status of a conglomerate heir or even a prince, which means he possesses substantial wealth and resources. This revelation prompts Woon to think that he can use Hyuk Ryun Woon's money and influence to gather information and find a way back to his world. Determined not to die in this novel, Woon yells to himself that he will survive and return to his home and that he won't let this cruel fate consume him. Meanwhile, outside, people are shocked to hear Hyuk Ryun Woon's voice and think that if Hyuk Ryun Woon had finally gone insane. We find Woon looking at himself in the hand mirror, finding Hyuk Ryun Woon's appearance obnoxious and considering him the weakest of the weak. He contemplates whether he should try using martial arts. Walking to the middle of the room, Woon concentrates, feeling energy surrounding him. He remembers the martial arts of the Hyuk Ryun family, known as the Heavenly Chaotic Destruction Sword technique. Determined to give it a try, he gathers energy around him, recognizing it as chi. Taking a fighting stance, Woon prepares to use the technique, and with excitement, he initiates the attack. However, as he completes the move successfully, a sharp pain suddenly surges throughout his body. Screams of pain echo from within the room as Woon finds himself stuck in an uncomfortable position on the floor, suffering from a severe cramp. In agony, he calls out for someone to summon a physician. A woman rushes into Woon's room and is startled to see him lying on the floor, unconscious, with froth at his mouth. The sight terrifies her, leaving her bewildered and concerned for Woon's well-being. We see Woon being treated by the physician, who uses needles to alleviate his pain. Woon reflects on how he almost died due to his inadequate training in Hyuk Ryun Woon's body. He realizes that using a high-level martial art like the Heavenly Chaotic Destruction Sword technique caused his muscles to twist. Woon wonders why Hyuk Ryun Woon's body is incapable of properly executing even a single move. We learn that the Heavenly Chaotic Destruction Sword technique is an exclusive skill of the Hyuk Ryun family, known for producing the highest number of leaders in the demonic cult. The technique has been discontinued and is incredibly challenging to master, requiring a tremendous amount of inner chi and a deep understanding of each move. Woon recalls that Hyuk Ryun Woon had always neglected training, opting for easily learned martial arts. Inner chi training and movement training was never taken seriously by him, resulting in a weak body. This lack of proper training explains why Hyuk Ryun Woon couldn't use the Heavenly Chaotic Destruction Sword technique. Frustrated, Woon questions why he had to possess such a weak body and faces the consequences of Hyuk Ryun Woon's negligence. We see Woon walking with determination, realizing he doesn't have time to stay still and must find a solution quickly. He enters a study room and starts searching for answers, pulling out multiple Chinese books from the shelves to read. Luckily, Woon can read Chinese, which proves to be fortunate. As he delves into the books, Woon learns more about the demon cult, or rather, the Sun Moon Divine Cult, as they call themselves. He discovers that during the Yuan dynasty, they spread their name among the suffering Han people in the Central Plains. They aided Zhu Yuanzhang in overthrowing the Yuan dynasty and establishing the Ming dynasty. However, after the Ming dynasty gained power, they were afraid of the power of the divine cult, and because of that they drove the divine cult out of the Central Plains, and later they settled in Xinjiang, far from their original home. The remaining cult members barely managed to stay alive until Divine Cult's third-generation leader, who nurtured a deep hatred for the people of the Central Plains for chasing them away, dreamed of returning. However, their attempts to advance were continuously thwarted by the Muram Alliance and the Imperial Army. Hyuk Ryun Woon, the 15th leader, and Hyuk Ryun Woon's father, first dealt with the Western Foreign Reign before turning his force towards the Central Plains. Woon realizes that this is the reason why Hyuk Ryun Woon will fight against the protagonist of the novel. He also learns that with the upcoming Heavenly Festival, Hyuk Ryun Woon plans to announce their intention to advance into the Central Plains and choose a successor. Woon confidently asserts that he already knows who the successor will be since he is the one who wrote the story. In Woon's version of the story, after the Heavenly Demonic Festival, the chosen successor will form a vanguard team to head to the Central Plains. At that time, Hyuk Ryun Woon, who suffered a terrible defeat during the successor's contest, forces himself to join the vanguard team to redeem himself. He ventures to the Central Plains, where he mocks the yet unknown protagonist and ultimately meets his demise in a single strike. As Woon contemplates his situation, he realizes that there are only 2 years left until the Heavenly Demonic Festival starts. In other words, he only has 2 years remaining before the protagonist kills him. He knows that he must find a way out of this fate. Suddenly, Woon takes out a piece of paper and starts to write, thinking that he needs to record everything he can remember from the way of a hero novel and any potential future events. We witness an elder man and a woman walking toward the study room. The elder man is puzzled, wondering if it was Woon who wanted to see him in the study. The woman confirms this, stating that Woon was the one who called for the elder's presence. The elder man finds it odd because Woon is not someone who would usually go there. However, the woman adds that something even stranger happened. After waking up from a coma, Woon began screaming in incomprehensible language for a long time. Now, he has been writing something for hours. Hearing about Woon's prolonged writing, the elder man becomes shocked and questions if Woon was writing. The woman confirms that Woon was indeed writing, which shocks the elder man. The elder man instructs her to leave and tells her not to tell anyone about what Woon was doing. The woman assures him that she won't. We see the elder man hurrying inside the study room. Standing outside, he ponders the possibility of Woon studying, considering that Woon hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. He questions himself about what he will do if Woon acts like a crazy dog again. Finally, the elder man enters the study room and directly asks Woon if he had called for him. We see Woon, with ink marks all over his face, greeting Elder Kwon. Observing this unusual expression from Woon, Kwon becomes shocked and questions whether Woon has gone insane. He notices that even the way Woon speaks has become gentle. Kwon reminisces about the past when Woon used to throw books at him, calling him useless and telling him to get out of his sight. But now, in the present, Woon offers Kwon a stool to sit on, which further astonishes Kwon. Witnessing this unexpected change in Woon's behavior, Woon himself thinks about how much of a nutjob Hyuk Ryun Woon must have been for Kwon to be so taken aback by his current demeanor. Inside the study hall, both Woon and Kwon sit down. Woon closes his eyes, deep in thought, and seeing this, Kwon asks if there's a problem. Woon then questions whether Kwon is only in charge of taking care of him or if he's also in charge of his wallet. Kwon replies that he takes care of both, and Woon proceeds to ask how much cash he could get if he sold everything he owned. This question makes Kwon wonder if Woon has gotten into some sort of trouble, and he assures Woon that he will take care of it for him. However, Woon explains that he hasn't caused any problems and clarifies that he was just curious. He tells Kwon that money is the ammo to get things done, which leaves Kwon puzzled about the term ammo. Nevertheless, Woon dismisses the topic and reiterates that the point is to think about what they've been doing with their lives. Woon then asks Kwon how much money he has, and Kwon wonders why Woon wants to know. Woon explains that when someone dies and comes back to life, they start pondering their life's choices. He questions the purpose of hoarding treasures they can't use in the afterlife. Woon instructs Kwon to exchange everything he owns for cold hard cash, and this surprises Kwon. However, he agrees to carry out the task. Woon then holds both of Kwon's hands with a smile on his face, expressing his trust in Kwon's ability to handle the matter. He informs Kwon that there is a lot of work to be done and urges him to start the exchange immediately. As Kwon hurries out to execute the task, Woon advises him to update the records of their finances and treasures diligently. He wants to keep track of how much they receive from selling each item. Observing Woon's behavior, Kwon thinks to himself that even though Woon came back from the dead, it feels like he's become a completely different person now. He begins to wonder if Woon is alright in the head. A few days pass, and we find Woon examining the money he received from selling his old belongings. He realizes that the amount he has isn't sufficient to fully implement his survival plan. However, he remains determined and reminds himself that he still has 2 years to prepare for the Heavenly Demon Festival. With a resolute expression on his face, Woon acknowledges that he must devise a survival plan, not just for Hyuk Ryun Woon, but for himself. He paces around his room, contemplating the wealth of Hyuk Ryun Woon, which amounts to around 2 billion won. While he acknowledges that it's not a bad sum, it's still not enough for his ambitious goals. Woon knows that the protagonist will only emerge from his training cave after the Heavenly Demon Festival ends, meaning he is safe for now. However, he recalls a scene where the protagonist is chased off a cliff and discovers a cave at the bottom with valuable potions and a sword. Woon reveals that after receiving this protagonist buff and becoming the world's strongest, a third-rate generic Murim story will begin. Determined to proceed to the next step, Woon realizes that he now possesses the money needed to advance his plans and needs to take the next step. We find Woon standing in front of the Heavenly Demon Library, which houses all the martial arts amassed by the divine cult over the years. He is certain that within those books lies the key to saving his life. As Woon enters the library, he notices that there are fewer books than he had imagined, which means he won't need much time to find what he seeks. Determined, Woon begins his search, carefully selecting the books he needs for his training. One particular book catches his eye, the life-saving meditation technique. According to the novel The Path of the Hero, this technique enhances one's senses, which is precisely what Woon requires. Those who master the life-saving meditation technique gain a superb sixth sense, allowing them to dodge attacks and seize opportunities in combat. Woon is excited about the possibilities this technique offers, especially since it will enable him to detect his opponent's strength and emotions, and even uncover dangerous traps and ambushes. He considers this ability a cheat skill, one that can significantly improve his odds of survival. As for how Woon knows about this technique, it's because the protagonist learns it around the middle of The Path of the Hero story, becoming even stronger. However, Woon is thrilled that he managed to learn it before the protagonist did, believing it will give him a considerable advantage in his quest for survival. Woon suddenly notices 2 more valuable books, the Scale Armor Technique and the 9 Moon Divine Art. These martial arts are exactly what he needs to enhance his chances of survival. The Scale Armor Technique promises to bolster his defense to the point where he can withstand sword strikes even without wearing armor. This newfound protection will undoubtedly be crucial in his battles ahead. Additionally, the 9 Moon Divine Art, a potent technique that amplifies one's strength up to 9-fold, presents a tremendous opportunity for Woon to increase his combat prowess significantly. He now has all the foundational martial arts required to defend himself against the protagonist and any other formidable opponents he may encounter. With determination blazing in his eyes, he boldly challenges the protagonist, vowing to master all 3 techniques for the sake of his survival. In another corner of the city, a group of people gathers, enjoying food, drinks, and the company of multiple women. Among them, a man calls out to someone named Dan Pyong, mentioning the recent rumors surrounding Hyuk Ryun Woon's resurrection. Dan Pyong dismisses the rumors and asks if there is something even more absurd than their very own lunatic Hyuk Ryun Woon reviving from the dead, considering Hyuk Ryun Woon to be nothing more than a lunatic. However, the man insists that this time, there seems to be something different about Woon's behavior. When he tried to visit Woon at the Western Villa, a servant informed him that Woon was busy and would call for him later. This surprised the man, as he believed Woon's only preoccupations were drinking and throwing tantrums. The man reveals that he investigated further and discovered that Woon had secluded himself in the Heavenly Demon Library for days. Dan Pyong finds this amusing and questions whether Woon even knows how to read. He jokes that maybe Woon is considering leaving their Four Heavens gang to make a name for himself. However, the man is serious, asking Dan Pyong if he thinks Woon might be planning to enter the battle for succession at the Heavenly Demon Festival. Dan Pyong bursts into laughter at the thought, believing it to be a ridiculous idea. He even jests that if Woon truly joins the battle for succession, he'll become Woon's slave, with everyone in the room as witnesses. Others in the group join in the laughter, finding the notion of Hyuk Ryun Woon entering the succession battle highly improbable. The man, however, knows that it's just wishful thinking on their part. Inside the Heavenly Demon Library, Woon studies the martial arts technique while absent-mindedly scratching his ears. He feels as though someone must be insulting him, but he dismisses the thought and realizes that learning martial arts on his own might be easier with a teacher. So, he decides to find a teacher and heads outside, wondering why he hadn't thought of this earlier. Outside the library, Kwon is walking when he suddenly hears Woon's voice. He recognizes it immediately and wonders what Woon is up to. Woon instructs Kwon to gather all the people he had listed and bring them to him. Confused, Kwon asks who these people are, and Woon reveals that they are his potential teachers. Kwon is taken aback, but is told by Woon to just call the people on the list. Woon then tells Kwon to guide all the teachers to his training grounds. However, in a slip of the tongue, Kwon accidentally refers to the training grounds as a trash heap. Realizing his mistake, Kwon quickly covers his mouth, fearing Woon's reaction. Woon is surprised that Hyuk Ryun Woon didn't even keep his training ground clean, wondering how long it will take to get it ready for use. Unfazed, Kwon assures Woon that he can have the training ground cleaned and ready within a day, promising that Woon can use it tomorrow morning. Satisfied, Woon agrees, saying that it's settled then. Woon, realizing he stinks from not taking a bath since he locked himself in the Heavenly Demon's library, decides it's time to clean up. He heads to the bath, feeling refreshed and alive again. However, as he starts bathing, he suddenly notices 2 women approaching him, offering to help him wash up. Startled, Woon politely declines their offer while bleeding from his nose, explaining that he can manage on his own. The women seem puzzled by his reaction and inquire why he is chasing them away. Woon, trying to keep his composure, reiterates that he doesn't need any assistance and urges them to leave. As the women hesitate, Woon feels his nose bleeding, a sign of his nervousness and embarrassment. Now, more anxious than before, he raises his voice, demanding them to leave immediately. Confused and taken aback, the women finally comply and quickly exit the bath. We see Woon expressing his determination not to enjoy himself while his life is still at stake. He surveys the papers attached to the wall, realizing that he needs a solid plan if he wants to survive and return to his world. Suddenly, a guard appears, informing Woon that Secretary Jang Moriang has arrived. Though a bit startled, Woon instructs the guard to bring the secretary in immediately. As Secretary Moriang sits on the chair, he wonders why the wildest troublemaker in the divine cult would call for him. He hopes that Woon hasn't uncovered any incriminating information about him and worries about what a lowly scholar from the demonic heaven pavilion could offer the young master, who's known for indulging in lavish luxuries. As Moriang glances around Woon's room, he is surprised to see only books and documentation, unlike what he had expected. Woon apologizes for the messy room and explains that he would have preferred to look for Moriang personally. He further apologizes for summoning Moriang instead, causing the secretary to be taken aback. Moriang insists that Woon should not be so polite and formal with him, urging him to speak more casually to avoid causing unnecessary mental stress. Woon agrees to talk more casually as they both sit down. He tells the secretary that he might be curious about why he asked to see him. Woon explains that he heard that Muriang is very familiar with a certain martial art. In response, Muriang questions which martial art Woon is referring to. Woon places the book titled The Longevity Meditation Method on the table in front of Muriang and mentions that he knows it's not just a beginner's book on meditation, but it contains many advanced theories. He emphasizes that they shouldn't underestimate the value of a martial art just because of its simplicity and asks if he is right. Surprised by Woon's insight, Muriang inquires about what exactly Woon wants from him. Woon reveals that Muriang was the one who wrote the most detailed instruction manual about the first martial art that all members of the divine cult must learn, which is the longevity meditation method. He admits that he has read the book, but his understanding of it barely scratches the surface. Hearing this, Muriang is taken aback. With determination, Woon expresses his desire for Muriang to teach him martial art. Shocked and uncertain, Muriang questions how he could teach Woon, stating that Woon shouldn't say something like that to him. Woon acknowledges that he has heard those rumors and confirms that Jang is talking about the ones where Woon is considered the weakest person in the history of the divine cult. Jang adds that the rumors also mention how Woon bullies those weaker than him while groveling before those stronger, and how he drowns himself in wine and women. Realizing what he said, Jang quickly covers his mouth, feeling embarrassed for speaking so bluntly. However, Woon tells Jang not to worry about it and admits that he does want to become stronger. He expresses concern about the divine cult's focus on quick mastery of martial arts, realizing that building a solid foundation is more important than speed. He gives the analogy of a tree with a thin trunk that breaks easily. Hearing Woon's words, Jang is moved to tears and agrees wholeheartedly with Woon's perspective. As Woon observes Jang's emotional response, Woon thinks if he should deal the final blow. He explains to Jang that many people within the divine cult reject his opinion because it aligns more closely with the orthodox sect's line of thought. He confesses that this is the reason he sought out Jang specifically and expresses remorse for going against the ideals of the divine cult. Tears flow from Jang's eyes as he becomes overwhelmed by the unexpected understanding and support from Woon. Woon realizes that his plan is working, but he wonders if he might have gone too far with his speech. Jang reveals that due to the lack of balance in the divine cult's martial arts, he had constructed his theory of martial arts, but no one acknowledged it. However, he now realizes that his and Woon's ideas carry the same meaning. Jang is amazed that Woon, their fourth young master, could comprehend the theory that Jang had put his whole life into perfecting. A bit nervously, Woon admits that he may not fully grasp the extent of what Jang had accomplished. But before Woon can finish his sentence, Jang bows down to him, asking for punishment for not recognizing Woon's true character and believing only in baseless rumors. In response, Woon gently places his hand on Jang's shoulder, assuring him that Jang is an indispensable member of the divine cult. Woon then suggests that they work together to improve the martial arts of their cult. Jang, full of determination, declares that he is willing to lay down his life to help Woon and thanks him for the honor of working together. As Woon reflects on his conversation with Jang, he is pleasantly surprised that it went better than he expected. However, he hadn't anticipated that Jang would be so emotional, realizing that Jang must have been carrying many burdens. The reason Woon chose Jang as his teacher is that Jang is the greatest genius in the novel The Way of a Hero and will become the demonic tactician in the future. With Jang's guidance, Woon believes that his chances of survival have significantly increased. Gazing at the moon, Woon records the successful recruitment of Jang, the brilliant strategist. He acknowledges Jang's pivotal role in the novel, where he becomes instrumental in trapping the protagonist and gains the nickname Demonic Tactician. Moreover, when the protagonist's rival, the second young master, becomes the successor of the demonic cult, Jang plays a vital role in the war against the Murim alliance. Drawing a comparison, Woon likens Jang's significance to Liu Bei's reliance on Zhuge Liang in the Three Kingdoms era. He marvels at the cleverness of this scenario he has written. Feeling tired from the events of the day, Woon lies down on his bed, deciding to sleep. The next day, Jang is bewildered by the array of materials laid out on the table. Woon reveals that from now on, Jang will be his martial arts teacher, and these materials will aid him in his training. Curious, Jang examines one of the documents and marvels at Woon's systematic and detailed training plan encompassing basic physical fitness, dietary guidelines, and proper rest and sleeping methods. He admits he has never encountered such a comprehensive training approach before. Woon explains that he noticed a lack of systematic basic training in the divine cult and tried various ways to address the issue. However, ultimately in the end they all start by eating, since the foundation of all martial arts, the body, which is shaped by what one eats, how they move, and how they rest. Impressed by Woon's method, Jang calls Woon's training method amazing and that the fact that all martial arts eventually come from a person's body, the part that someone who had been holding on to martial arts for decades overlooked, was completely filled by Woon. Unknown to Jang, Woon's training plans are inspired by modern-day exercise and diet practices found in regular gyms. Nevertheless, Jang is convinced, and Woon suggests they study this training method together to enhance their divine cult's martial arts further. We witness Woon undergoing rigorous training under Jang's guidance, who constantly motivates and encourages him throughout the process. Woon's dedication to the training is evident as he now possesses a more muscular physique, achieved through 2 weeks of following modern training techniques. He feels satisfied with the progress and wonders if his advantageous genetic inheritance, being the cult leader's son, might have contributed to his natural physical prowess. As they continue training, Jang observes Woon's performance closely, noting down details in his journal. Woon is not surprised, as he expected Jang to adapt his training method to complement his martial arts practice. With Jang's guidance, Woon is confident that Hyuk Ryun Woon can undoubtedly grow stronger. Outside the training ground, Sangkwon who stands wondering what Woon could be doing inside. He jests that Woon should have been enjoying himself at a brothel instead. However, his skepticism quickly turns to shock as he spots Kwon coming out of the training ground. Curious, Sangkwon who asks Kwon if Woon is inside, to which Kwon confirms that Woon is indeed training. This shocks Sangkwon who questions if Woon is training, and Kwon tells him that it had already been 2 weeks since Woon had started to train. Sangkwon who is taken aback, unable to believe that Woon has been training for 2 weeks. He recalls never witnessing Woon engaged in any serious training, even during their visits to the Heavenly Demonic Pavilion, where they learned martial arts. He questions if Woon has truly gone insane, unable to fathom the idea of Woon putting effort into training. Still skeptical, Sangkwon who suggests that Woon might be using the training as a cover to hide a beautiful woman he wishes to keep for himself. However, Kwon insists that Woon is genuinely dedicated to his training. He invites Sangkwon who to see for himself, encouraging him to visit the training room. Inside the training room, Woon and Jang are engaged in intense sparring, with Woon pushing Jang away with his improved martial arts techniques. Impressed by Woon's progress, Jang compliments him on how dramatically his skills have improved. Meanwhile, Sangkwon who enters the training room, questioning Woon about what he's doing. Woon notices Sangkwon and wonders why one of the members of the Four Heavens gang would come to him. He had deliberately kept a distance from them since they had no place in his survival plan. Nonetheless, he hadn't anticipated one of them seeking him out. Sangkwon expresses concern for Woon and wonders why Woon hasn't contacted them since coming back from the coma. Woon explains that he has been training during this time. Sangkwon seems confused, questioning what Woon means and suggesting that Woon's head might not be fully healed yet after his coma. Inwardly, Woon reflects on how surprising it is for Sangkwon to worry about him. He also finds it amusing that Sangkwon doubts whether he is the same Hyuk Ryun Woon he knew before, considering how much Woon has changed his behavior and demeanor. He acknowledges that Sangkwon is surprisingly perceptive. Woon bluntly tells Sangkwon that if he came just to talk nonsense, then he should get lost because he is in a hurry. Curious, Sangkwon questions why Woon would be in such a rush. In response, Woon shares that after coming back from his coma, he realized how much he regretted his past behavior, and now he simply wants to live life to the fullest. Turning to Jang, Woon suggests that they spar one more time, but upon observing Jang, he thinks they might have overdone it already. Glancing over at Sangkwon, Woon starts to consider using him as a training partner. Without hesitation, Woon leaps into the air, ready to attack Sangkwon, who appears quite scared as Woon comes charging toward him. Thank you for watching until the end. If you find this story interesting, please comment "Villain Unrivaled" below to let us know you are interested.